Welcome, everybody.
All right, well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our Trailblazers webinar today. My name is Sheryl O'Connor, CEO and co-founder of IncomeConductor, an award-winning retirement income planning technology that engages your clients in the planning process and delivers income certainty, not probability. Our Trailblazer series highlights the people in our industry who are forging new paths and developing new ways to achieve success while providing great outcomes for clients. We welcome your questions, so please type them into the Q&A box at any time during the webinar, and we'll try to get to all of them at the end. So it is my great pleasure to welcome our Trailblazer today, Paul Saganey, founder and CEO of Integrated Partners and a longtime business associate and friend.
Yeah.
Paul has spent the past 30 years building a $24 billion RIA on a bold idea. Give advisors world-class support, and they'll build practices that transforms the lives of the wealthiest, most complex clients. Since launching the firm in 1996, he's assembled a network of over 220 advisors and pioneered the Integrated CPA Alliance, connecting over 200 accounting firms to deliver seamless wealth management solutions. Paul's insights have appeared in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and Investment News, covering everything from estate planning to business succession to preparing clients for the great wealth transfer. In 2025, he was honored to receive the Thought Leader of the Year Wealthies Award from wealthmanagement.com for creating the CPA Alliance, and he's been recognized for making significant contributions to the financial advisory profession by Think Advisors Luminaries program. Paul is the author of 2 books, Making Smart Decisions, written for ultra-high net worth families and business owners navigating complex financial lives, and Optimizing the Financial Lives of Clients, a how-to manual for accounting firm owners looking to add financial services for their clients. Welcome, Paul. I am thrilled to have you on as my Trailblazer guest.
Cheryl, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So I'm so excited about our conversation today and to hear your thoughts about, our learning objectives and how you're growing your firm. But I always start out by asking, how did you start in the financial services industry? What did your journey look like?
Yeah, boy, I came right out of college. I had the great fortune to go to school here in Boston at Northeastern University, and I did my co-op programs. I went to pharmacy school actually, but my good friend and roommate, who was a couple of years older, was in the financial services world, and so the funny part of the story is literally one day I saw him doing his tax return, and I saw how much money he made, and it was like twice what the best pharmacist could ever make in their entire lifetime. So I was like, wow, I gotta give this. I kind of had to check it out, and so I did. I looked into his career, saw what it was all about, and then also during my co-ops at Northeastern, I got to own a small business with a friend of mine down in Marshfield, Massachusetts. And it was I think back in the days, it was a small computer company where we would help local Mar and Par pharmacies, back when they existed, kind of put computers in their stores for the very first time. And because we were students, we were working inside some of the hospitals, they used our age, if you will, and kind of our excitement about working with computers to get some of these more older pharmacy store owners to kind of get into the computerized world. But very quickly, Cheryl, got into financial planning. A tremendous break for me was the firm I was working with. We had an association disability plan with the Massachusetts Bar. So all the attorneys here in Massachusetts, it was a great disability program, and I got to meet literally hundreds and hundreds of attorneys. And then like in the late 80s, when second to die insurance came into existence, they would start to call and say, hey, can you give me $1 million quote? And before you know it, I got curious about estate tax planning. And that led me to probably one of the single greatest moves. I went to a company called Cigna Financial Advisors. And so,
Yeah.
Cigna to this day is still the primary training ground for ultra high net worth business owner advisors. And so, Amy Levitt, Dick Sikorsky. I got to work with these people every single day and see literally some of the best advisors at work. And so I got to be with my partner, Peter Gaines. We were the RVPs here in Boston for Cigna. And so we were overseeing all the advisors working primarily in the wirehouse space. So Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney, Dean Witter. But what was amazing about it, Sheryl, is that I got to see at a young age the power of working with another professional. In other words, being referred into these ultra wealthy clients. And I remember, like at the time, many times I was younger than the children of the clients I was being referred to, but I had to learn my craft, and that's what the company taught us: how to work with wealthy people, how to motivate them to want to take action with us. The power of building a financial and an estate plan before you try to manage their wealth. And so something we carry forward to today is really fix everything for that family and then kind of look at their wealth after the fact. But the one thing about that model is that we made our living, Sheryl, on fee-based plans. So we would charge fees for planning services. We place insurance for estate tax needs. But all the wealth management went back to the FAs at the wirehouse space. And so, jump forward to 1996, that was the first year that accounting firms in Massachusetts could be licensed to share in financial planning revenues. And I had a very good friend who had a large accounting firm, and he's like, hey, why don't you just do for my wealthiest clients what you're doing for the wirehouse space? And so I just jumped off and we started this thing literally with a couple of internal cubes and one external office. And we just built it on the whole idea that if we had successful advisors who wanted to work with wealthier clients, would find an accounting firm, plug in an advisor. And then if I met a really good advisor in the community, we'd go find them an accounting firm. So we really just stair-stepped our growth. It was looking more like a producer group. I am still an advisor today. So to all of you watching, I still run my practice, and I use that as to be a mentor and really to help lead our advisors in terms of where they want to go with their practices. But we really, until about 2018, 2019, really were just finding great accounting firms in the New England states and matching up the advisors. But 2019 is when we decided to go national. We had some great opportunities with really large accounting firms on the West Coast. We could see Florida, Virginia start to take off for us. And so we have a second headquarters now in San Diego. Andre Moore, who's our president, under her leadership, it's just taken off. I mean, so by 2019, Sheryl, we were about just under $4 billion of total assets. And, we looked like a producer group, advisors, helping advisors and really driving our practices forward. But it was really 2018-19, we decided to really, focus on this organization, build it out, start to get around the entire country. And that's when our growth went from, 4 billion to it's going to hit 25 billion here pretty soon. And so it's just been amazing. And the story just keeps going and going and going. No PE money, no revenue. The only reason I mention that is because I think for your viewers, with a really good business plan, surrounded by the right talent and the right people, boy, you can really do anything. And so I know that a lot of firms are growing with inorganic growth stories, but certainly for organic growth stories, matching up our advisors with great CPAs, working with wealthier clients has been tremendous for us.
So that's been a core strategy since you started Integrated, right?
I would say
the CPA Alliance.
Yeah, the main strategy. I mean, early on, we did some seminars to the general community to raise assets that way, because that was kind of the tail end of the seminar world that was coming. It was really big in the late 80s, early 90s. But that was my background. So working with really wealthy clients that had really complex financial and personal lives. And so, who better than CPAs to get us in the door? They are the most trusted advisor. And even more so than having an FA at a wirehouse introduce us. Once your CPA says, give this group 20 minutes of your time, then it's just up to us to perform and do a great job for that client. But we were getting opportunities literally on a daily basis to some amazing clients.
That's awesome. So that was a pretty unique strategy back in the day, that partnership, wasn't it?
It was, I think, because it was new for everybody. And I think back then, for those that have been in the business that long, a lot of CPAs thought they could do it themselves. And so they weren't necessarily looking to partner with somebody else. It was, how could they open up their own wealth management division? And so, but CPAs realized pretty early on, although they could maybe do an IRA rollover or open a 401k, the idea of going to their top 10% net worth and income clients and building a whole financial plan. Like that didn't work at all. And so, early on, Cheryl, a bunch of our CPAs actually had maybe kind of like a dual model where they would try to do the 401ks and handle some of the real small stuff on their own and give us the really larger, more complex opportunities, which is what we're founded on, by the way. So although we will certainly support any and all clients, but when it comes to successful relationships, focus is so key. In other words, what's your unique ability? What's the ideal client you can handle? If you can really increase that accounting firm's confidence in our ability to handle their very wealthy clients, it just never ends. The doors are wide open at that point.
No, that's awesome. So can you talk about, let's go back to the planning aspect of this relationship.
Yeah.
So I know, the reason we met and started working together was because of your firm's focus on retirement income planning.
Yeah.
And using the segmented strategy approach that my partner Phil Lubinsky
Yeah.
taught you guys way back in the day. And then you adopted one of the technologies that he developed with financial profiles and then eventually IncomeConductor. How does that planning component with, I know you use eMoney as well as IncomeConductor, how does that planning component actually work with the CPAs logistically?
Yeah.
How does that fit in?
Well, first, Phil, by the way, would be on our Mount Rushmore of financial advisors. So, look, I'll be honest with you all. We would not have had the success that we had without Phil Lubinsky in our lives and without using what is now called the IncomeConductor. And so, keep in mind the number one way to destroy a CPA advisor relationship is to have the client complain about something. And so we always ran the risk, especially when the tech, crash hit and all that in the early 2000s, that if we didn't have a financial planning solution such that during difficult times, the client wouldn't complain to their CPA and the CPA wouldn't get mad at us. Because remember, once again, we're working with their highest revenue generating clients. It's not like they're losing some small 529 plan. These are their very best clients. And so therefore, we knew early on that we needed a planning solution. It had to be different. It had to be interesting. And it really had to compel that accounting firm to want to get us in the door and meet their very best clients. And so along comes Phil Lubinsky and the work that he did with Ray Lucas, who was heading up our financial planning and still does that today for us. Sitting here today in front of you of our $25 billion, that's still our number one asset gathering tool would be what we call lifetime income modeling, which is the IncomeConductor software. Even for our very wealthiest business owners who will help sell their business for hundreds of millions of dollars, their entire wealth, the rest of their lives, is modeled out under the concepts of the IncomeConductor system. And so it helps us build better portfolios. It gives that client some level of comfort and certainty with their future financial lives. But here's the key thing for us, Cheryl, above everything else, is that when markets went down, the banking collapse and all that, and think of what's taken place since the year 2000, the clients inherently knew the dollar that's down 20, 30, 40, 50%, I don't need it for 10, 15, or 20 years. And so therefore, everyone took a deep breath and no one went complaining to their CPA. And as I sit here in front of you, we've never, knock on wood, so much as had an advisor complaint. We've never lost a CPA firm. So, we've never had anyone call us in a moment of panic saying, you're hurting my relationship with our very best clients. And so without the IncomeConductor system and the methodology behind it, we wouldn't have had a planning solution to solve our needs. And so, isn't it interesting, at the same time the CPAs could get licensed to do financial planning and we get involved in that marketplace, I meet Phil and I see what Phil's doing and my head was like, oh my goodness, I couldn't believe this. And it was kind of an answer to our dreams. And so therefore, once again, it's our number one asset gathering tool for clients of all sizes. And even now, with the baby boomers, because think about it, when we started using IncomeConductor, baby boomers were probably 5 or 6 years away from hitting age 65. We knew, looking at the demographics and looking at the inventory of clients inside the accounting firm, that, if we put this together, figured it out, built some good portfolios and had a really powerful story, as I said earlier, it's about confidence building. So, the more we increase that CPA's confidence and they see we've got a solution, they're just like everybody you can possibly meet with, friends, relatives, their family, their best clients. It's just all about that CPA's confidence. And that's one thing the Income Conductor does for us is it just gives that planning confidence that we can deliver for their best clients.
Yeah, and we saw that in 2008 and 2009 as well. So I think advisors work so hard to get clients in the door and to establish the relationship, having strategies that keep that client in place through market volatility and, downturns is really important, having those kinds of strategies. So you mentioned opportunities. Let's talk about that $11 trillion opportunity.
Yeah.
What are the most significant opportunities in the industry today, in your eyes?
Yeah. So, by the way, and thank you. We're hitting our 30th anniversary. So, we're having a lot of celebrations next year
Oh,
and get togethers and
congratulations.
parties. Yeah. It's going to be an
Yeah.
exciting, very festive year for us as a firm. But I really mean this. I tell everybody, I think the next 5 to 10 years will be better than the last 30 by a factor of 10. And the reason for that is because everything's just kind of coming our way, like all this hard work, all this amazing talent we've kind of accumulated here at the firm. It's just coming to a crescendo such that, the youngest baby boomer now is approaching age 60. Isn't it funny? We were there when the first one became 65. Now they're
Mhm.
hitting age 60. And so for what it's worth, Sheryl, and for your viewers, there's about $11 trillion of small business owner wealth that will be changing hands the next 10 to 15 years. So we know for us with our accounting firm program, although, we're thrilled about having, it's actually 250 referring CPAs inside of those accounting firms that send us introductions. But we know we have over 50,000 small businesses inside of our existing accounting firms. And we know sitting here today, about a third of them will sell their business in the next 10 to 15 years. And so we really have $100 billion plan we put together here. We really feel and we know that we can get in front of about $100 billion of new assets. And so for us, we use these terms visions, capabilities, and reach, which is a Dean Jackson. He talks about all the time in his podcast. And Dean was in a study group with me. And so our vision is very clear. We want to get in front of these business owners who want to sell. And then we've just spent the time, Sheryl, building these capabilities teams. In other words, our pre-sale tax teams. And so we're now doing the type of tax work that no one is doing to get that business owner ready to sell their business and then put as much in their pocket as they possibly can. So that's a combination of financial planning and tax expertise before they make the sale. Then we have our M&A division here. We actually are going out and getting the businesses sold. And so we've got a giant network that under our control, we can hold that business owner's hand and get the business sold. And then once it's sold on the back end, certainly putting the family's estate plan together, their wealth management, model, in their world once they sell the business has really been huge for us for a long time. And so, but for us, we just see because of our existing accounting firms, we know about a third of our existing CPAs clients will sell their business. And so we just want to get in front of that. And I think that for your viewers watching this, think of your community. Who do you know that is working with these small business owners who need to make a really important decision? There are very few firms out there who are going to dedicate the time, attention, and resources that are needed to have the expertise to handle, once again, pre-sale, actual M&A transaction, then the post-sale financial plan thereafter. And so it's really, you can hear to my voice probably, we're excited about this because just everything's coming our way. The average CPA is about age 60. The average financial advisor is about age 60. So all these business owners, all these entrepreneurs are now in that 10-year window where they want to make some really important decisions, and they need really competent advisors to not make mistakes, I guess is what I should say. And so you mentioned some of the books there, like our one, Making Smart Decisions. It actually walks through for a business owner or ultra high net worth individual what they should be asking, what they should be looking for in a financial advisor. And so when we get an introduction, we say, please look at this book, look at these chapters, and then start comparing
Oh,
contrast to others. We tell them what to look for. It's how it works.
that is such a smart strategy because instead of going after them after they've sold their business, you're holding their hand through the whole process. So you've got a really deep, solid relationship with these people.
I go back to my work in school and I tell everybody, look, if you have to have heart surgery, brain surgery, I've had my hip replaced. I didn't go look for the nicest doctor. You know what I mean? I went to find the best doctor to do the work, who turned out to be probably the worst personality, but he was an amazing surgeon. And I think that all too often advisors lean on the fact that, likability, I'm a nice person, I've got a good practice and all that. But at the end of the day, it's the best advice. In other words, the best talent that surrounds you, the capabilities team, because that's what these business owners demand. They want to know that the best tech strategies are there. Everything's been put in place for their families before they make that sale transaction. And so, yeah, that's why for us, it's about competence, getting in there, being the best advisors. And that's, I think, what's going to really win the day for us going forward.
Yeah, so speaking of, advice, I always ask my guests, where do you think the future of advice in the industry is headed? You mentioned the team concept, Paul. You mentioned bringing in different specialists. Who do you think are the key team members, at least for your business model, that you've brought together that, are actually contributing to your success at this point?
Great questions. I just talked to an advisor. So I think advisors have to decide they're either working within a firm that has the talent already there, what I call the capabilities team, or you have to go find it. And it's not going to be the people down the street from you or probably your next door neighbor. Like, you want to find the best talent in the country that can handle the needs of this, incredibly, this big opportunity that's in front of us. And so for us, it's our estate planning team, Sheryl. We're blessed. Our chief investment officer, Steve Colano, he was the head of BNY Mellon's family office at one point. And so he comes in with a pedigree of working with the wealthiest clients. You've got Ray Lucas and his team that are building the plan once the business is sold to make sure that everything's lined up. Homer Smith runs our family office and business succession group. And so there is no one more brilliant than Homer and his team at doing all the pre-tax planning. So everyone has a role. Go back to the medical community. So in other words, I don't go see a brain surgeon for a bunion on my foot. So everyone has an expertise and a specialty in integrated partners, including myself, by the way. And so what we do is just make sure that our advisors and our CPAs especially know who can they count on when the need arises. And so they give a conveyor belt of a business who wants to sell. It's cleaning up the books. We have a consulting internal that does that for the business owner, making sure they're going to do all the financial planning to maximize the sale and put as much money in their pocket as they possibly can, make the transaction happen. And then the post-sale team, that could be 7 or 8 different people, Sheryl. And so everyone has an expertise to bring at a different time. And so I really am a big believer in focused expertise in certain areas versus being a good generalist, especially if you want to win that CPA's confidence. Because, when you think about it, when our advisors are in the room, so picture a room and you're sitting there, it's you, the CPA, the CPA's clients, 9 times out of 10, it's the CPA is the hardest person to win over because they know a lot about our business. They know a lot about our industry. They're not going to be they're not going to find the nicest person. They want the best advice. And so they really become their client's advocate. And as we like to say, we're a guest in their house. So we have this thing we call the hero mindset, Sheryl, where we want to make that CPA look like a hero to their clients. And so sitting at that table, usually the most difficult person to win over is that CPA. And so therefore, the advice, the recommendations have to be at the highest level. Because the CPA can't say to themselves, well, I could have done this, or it doesn't seem that complicated. No, when you're dealing with complex, ultra high net worth people, it is complicated. You need to at least introduce all the planning concepts. They may not go with them, but anyone with significant wealth or really a more complex financial life wants to know that at least we're looking at all the options and telling you the pros and cons and deciding on what's the appropriate action. But they want to make sure that the team has looked for everything before they made that final recommendation.
So you've got this team, they function on a national level, right?
Yeah.
So they across the country. Where does the individual advisor come in, or the advisor team?
Yeah, great question. Yeah. Boy, this is a pre-COVID, post-COVID question. Because, pre-COVID, I'll be honest with you, when we would bring a CPA firm in, we would have to find an advisor in the community. So it was all about community, and it was a much harder, mission for us to accomplish because it was just hard, in wherever, pick a state and pick a city, if we found a great CPA, we'd have to start to wander around and find a good advisor. Now with Zoom technology, and even for myself, like my practice is 100% Zoom. That's how I find more time and how I am, quite honestly, I'm more efficient and effective on Zoom calls with my
Hmm.
clients than I am face to face. And so, we have our business owner team up in Seattle working with our accounting firms in Florida and San Diego and Boston. And with
Hmm.
advisors here in the Boston area working with firms out there in Chicago. So once again, we really impress upon the CPA. Geography doesn't matter. Expertise and professionalism does. So once again, go back to your body. If you needed to have a surgery done, you would find the best surgeon no matter where they are.
Hmm.
And that's how we look at this is we have the best talent. It may be all around the country, but that's why these Zoom calls are so powerful and so important. So, but it doesn't mean that a lot of our advisors do have CPAs in their backyards, if you will, Cheryl.
Hmm.
They're there all the time. They've got great relationships, but they're always pulling in our talent as needed. So that's our promise to the CPA, the best talent at the right time. And therefore with Zoom, we can make it happen virtually anywhere.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, so we've got a couple of questions here. What book does Paul use for his business owners?
Making smart decisions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they can find that on Amazon. Is
It
that
is. Yep.
Amazon?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I wrote that with Russ Allen Prince and Homer Smith. It was a collective effort. And once again, it's just a powerful book because it takes clients that are kind of wondering and what do I do and how do I do this? And if you think about it, every single wealthy person already has advisors in their lives. And so, they're looking sometimes with a lack of purpose and what they're actually looking for. So this book just corrals their thinking. Ask these questions, look for this type of person, look for this expertise. If it can be done in conjunction with your current group of advisors, all the better. We prefer that actually, but
Mhm.
it just takes that, I hate to say it this way, but many, people out there looking for an advisor, they kind of fall, I like this person the most. That doesn't make them the best advisor. So we're really impressing upon the client. It's the best advisors, the best talent at the right time in your life.
And this whole program has been very helpful in recruiting advisors to your firm, right?
Yeah, I mean it's certainly what we are known for, and as we're out there
Uh-huh.
talking to different people, we use something called 6 times 10 plus 1. And so when I meet a new advisor and I look at their book of business, let's say they've got whatever a couple hundred clients and they average about $1 million of investable assets. What a CPA can do is for them is help them get in front of 6 new clients that are 10 times larger than the client they work with today. And we just do it every single year, Cheryl. Every year we do the math over again and go higher and higher and higher. And so, when you work with an accounting firm, you know, you just want to focus. In other words, I use that word all the time. It's in another book I wrote, it's called Let's Get One. In other words, with a CPA, just focus on getting one more introduction, not the next 10, 15, or 20 of
Mhm.
them. Make sure it's one, make sure it's the right quality for what you're trying to work with. And then if you get that one done and you impress that CPA, you'll get another one and another one and another one. And before you know it, you're going to get those 6 to 8 or 10 cases per year. They'll be sizable. They're exciting to work with. These are clients that will need you for the rest of their lives. Like I don't ever see an AI bot for at least my lifetime probably handling the financial planning needs and the personal needs of these
Mhm.
clients. Their lives are too complex, both financially and personally, to have an AI bot come in and figure things out. And so I think for a lot of advisors, I know that I go to conferences and I hear what people's concerns are, but you asked the question about the future. For the right kinds of clients that have complexity, Cheryl, so either financial complexity or life complexity,
Mhm.
kids, grandkids, good marriages, bad marriages, you put that all into the blender and it gets people, really confused and they need to find someone to help them kind of clear out their path for the financial future that they have in front of them. And so therefore, for us, it's really impressing upon our advisors and the new ones that are joining us about getting in front of these clients that will always need our help. We'll provide the team. We get them all sitting here in your backyard. So we'll make you look like a hero to your CPA. The CPA will look like a hero to their clients and everybody wins. That's kind of how things put together.
Yeah, and somebody read my mind here asking a question. There are a limited number of high net worth and ultra high net worth clients. Does this model work for the mass affluent? Can it be scaled down to the mass affluent, the millionaire next door?
It's a good question. So in our CPA program, we share revenue. So therefore, I would say that it's about quantity and quality of referrals or potential opportunities.
Mhm.
If you can get quality and quantity without having an accounting firm program, then knock yourself out. You don't need the program. But typically in our world, our advisors are trying to get in front of these 10x type clients, and they're always increasing their 10x. And therefore, these CPAs help them get in front of the quantity and quality that they want. It could certainly work for mass affluent. It can work for retirees. We do it, by the way. So most of our advisors work in teams, Sheryl. So the main team member, he or she is working and going higher and higher up the line, if you will, to work with wealthier and wealthier clients. They're coming to training classes with us. They're being in our study groups. They're really being, they've made the decision. We want to go up market with the practice. But all these advisor teams have other advisors there. Like I myself, I've got 5 advisors in my team, and they would handle more of the mass affluent type clients or maybe some of the retirees to give me the time to go after these larger clients and cases. And so, time is the challenge, isn't it, for any successful advisor? How do I find time to build the practice of my dreams going forward? And so this is where Andre and Matt and her team have written a wonderful book, by the way, about how to reimagine your practice, rebuild it, such that you can free up the time to go after these larger opportunities. Because here's what I'll share with you. These are just multiplying these large opportunities. So all these business owners, the $11 trillion, think of all the wealth that's going to change hands from, grandparents to kids, kids to their kids and all that. So there's this cascading of wealth that really needs competent people to be there to help them make the right decisions. And so, and that's what these books are about. That's what the whole program's about. But the CPA firm just extends your reach. In other words, it gives you access to hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of really good potential clients. The advisors have to sit there and decide not everyone's appropriate for you. It could be a member of your team, could handle certain clients and free up your time. But for us, we're always trying to give our advisors confidence to keep going up market. Sheryl, the size clients we're working with now are incredible. They're exciting. They need our help and support. There's not a lot of competition out there for what we're doing. And so that's why I'd answer your question earlier. Again, the next 5 to 10 years will be amazing compared to the last 30.
So are you at the point now, Paul, where CPA firms are actually coming to you?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
John Pastore, who runs our CPA program, is out and he's very active in the CPA community. People talk about us. Isn't that nice? So our current partners talk about us and tell everyone else about them. We need to pay attention, though, Sheryl, to the fact that just like in our industry where practices are being bought by larger RIAs and bigger all the way up. Same thing's happening in the accounting space. So once again, the average CPA is around age 59 or 60, and they're looking to monetize their life's work. And so we've changed our model, although we still work with small local CPAs of all different sizes, where we've made the greatest strides here with the large regional firms. Yeah, that's been huge for us. The 50 or even more partner type firms, the ones that are buying the smaller ones. We decided about 6 years ago to really focus on that, and John and his team have done an exceptional job. And so it wouldn't be uncommon to see our typical accounting firm now as a large regional that can support 10 to 12 advisors.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, as usual, we've gone over time and we could probably talk for hours more, Paul, but thank you so much for sharing your 30 years experience and your, obviously what was a wildly successful strategy that you've just built upon and expanded throughout the years. And thank you for sharing it with us and congratulations for all your success.
Well, to you and Tom and Phil, once again, IncomeConductor was there for us. It gave us the planning solution. So thank you for all the hard work that you're doing as well. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody who's attended. We'll be sending out a recording of the webinar shortly after, and we hope to see you at next month's Trailblazer webinar. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.